Hey, I want to welcome you to this episode of the Church Tips Podcast. Dick and Jonathan Hardy here today with you, and we're excited to be in studio talking about the life of the worship pastor. And today we're going to be continuing our discussion from the last episode where we're talking about the nitty-gritty of the worship pastor's life. Because as you know, Dick, on Sundays, everything looks glamorous. We're leading people into the presence of God, and this is just such a wonderful time. And there's excitement, there's passion, there's maybe even some adrenaline happening as people are up on stage and they're just seeing people experiencing God and coming in connection with God. And yet, that's just one small component of the worship pastor's life. Yep. And so there's a whole lot more to it, as we know from these videos we've been watching.
Well, there really is. And we've been privileged to partner with Jeff Deyo, who was the former lead singer for Sonic Flood back in the day, if you remember that Christian worship band. And he's created an entire course that's designed to help worship leaders, lead pastors, teams be able to go to the next level in their own worship leadership. And so the last podcast we talked about the part one of this nitty gritty in the life of the worship leader, and now this is part two, and we're excited to see what Jeff's got to talk about here in this second part. So we're going to go ahead and just cut right to Jeff and pick up right where we left off in the last podcast.
Point number 4 is you will manage and oversee a team of volunteers. Obviously, this point really has to do with people, right? People are your focus. You might have thought music and songs and worship was your focus, but really as a worship pastor, worship leader, people are now your focus, not just God. Of course, God is the foundational focus. He's your primary focus, as we've talked about so far in this course. But now people are important. You're going to be involved in scheduling teams. How do you do that? How do you schedule people? You don't want to schedule them too much and not enough. Some people are worried about being overworked. Some people are like, how come I can't be on the team more often? You have to deal with some of those issues, right? And you want to keep a healthy rotation for your teams. You're also going to need to be able to inspire your teams musically, right? I mean, we want to take our teams musically to another level. Maybe some of the teams know how to read chord charts. Maybe they don't know how to read number charts. Maybe some of them only know how to read notes, and you want to teach them how to read charts. Maybe some are not very good at memorizing music, but we want to get rid of those stands. And so we work on that process. But you want to inspire your teams musically to grow in that area of music. Then you're also going to have to disciple your teams, right? When it comes to dealing with people, you're going to need to disciple your teams. Spiritual growth, not just musical growth, but also spiritual growth. What does it mean to be a worship pastor? That word pastor is a powerful word. It means that you're leading, that you're shepherding, that you're serving, that you're helping, and you're guiding. All right. And then, of course, along the way, you're going to need to learn to delegate. You're going to have to delegate because you're not going to be able to do all this by yourself. This is a beautiful thing because this is not just you trying to get out of work. This is you empowering people. There may be people in your volunteer team that are really good at certain things that you're not good at. God loves to do that. Put together people that work well together, that one person has this skill, another person has that skill. But you got to learn to delegate. And that is tough because sometimes you get consumed with trying to do it all yourself. But it's important to empower others. And then another part of this is you're going to have to learn to resolve conflict. Now, we're going to talk more about this in detail later, but this is an important part of managing and leading people. So point number 5, you will need to become a content creator. From everything that I've seen and talking to worship pastors and leaders and my own experience personally, man, there's so many opportunities now to create content, right? Maybe you're going to be part of doing the offering videos, if there's videos for that. There's going to be an online presence where you might be required to create content for websites or social media posts or for events that are happening, that type of thing. You're going to have to create content for your transitions between your songs. Not just flying by the seat of your pants, but you've got to know, how can I communicate? How can I tie these songs together? How can I create content for these transitions? And then you also, as we talked about, spiritually mentoring your teams, you're going to have to create content for your team devos, right? Devotionals, your time to help with the spiritual growth. So you create content here where the Lord is leading you to lead your team spiritually. Hey, another part of that is you might be writing songs. Your pastor might come to you and say, hey, we want to do a recording. So we want you to write new songs so we can do a recording for our church. So if that's not something that you've done in the past, maybe you have to step into that. And then again, pull people in with you that can help you with songwriting and creating content for your songs. All right, number 6. You will need to adapt to new online service demands. Come on, this is a new day, right? Post 2020, post COVID-19, so much has changed with all those things, but everyone now has an online campus. If they didn't before, they do now. And of course, a lot of things comes with that, right? We've got to learn to communicate to the online audience, the online congregation. Sometimes you have to talk to the camera. You have to welcome and invite people and invite them to respond, even if they're at home. Maybe you invite them to stand, even if they're in their living room, and lift up their hands and worship God, right? And you can invite them even to respond in the chat rooms and give some feedback and that type of thing as well, if they have prayer requests, all that type of stuff. So it's also going to mean increased personnel. You might need another sound engineer for your streaming console. You might need more camera people, all those types of things. So it might mean that you're facilitating and leading more people than you have in the past. And of course, there could be new gear demands as well, right? You're going to have additional boards, some mics, cameras, and you have to learn about how these things work. Hopefully there's somebody that's overseeing that production department, but you might be overseeing the whole. So you have to learn about some of those things as well. I know some worship pastors are overseeing all of that. So then there's also going to be some new streaming programs you're going to have to learn. I've read about a couple of them. There's one called Restream, one called Resi, and it just depends on what works for you. And there's some other ones I'm sure as well. But which ones are user-friendly versus how expensive they are and adaptable and all that stuff. But you're going to have some learning curves on learning some of those programs as well. But don't forget, the end goal with the online audience is to get them back in the building. Now we know there's probably always going to be people that are a part of our online church. But of course, we want to do whatever we can to encourage them, to draw them back into the building so we can have personal interaction and build that community together.
Wow, that was really good, wasn't that? Man, there was a lot of good little nuggets in there.
Man.
And just really appreciate this content that Jeff has created. And by the way, as you probably know, this is from the worship leadership course that Jeff has put together that we are releasing here in February 16th, I think is the official release date. So if you're interested in that, you're going to want to be sure to keep an eye out for that course to come live. In fact, is there a specific link they can go to to sign up to be notified when it comes out?
We'll have a link in the show notes for you to jump onto, and we'll tell you. You're just basically asking us to tell you when it comes out live.
I think it's Leaders.Church/worship, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So be sure to check
Try
that out.
And if that doesn't work, holler at us and we'll get you the right one. So
so go to Leaders.Church/worship. But one of the things that stuck out to me, just as he was talking about managing and overseeing a team of volunteers, is how important it is for us to really keep people our focus. I mean, certainly we want to be improving our skill as worship leaders and musically and so forth. But when you really boil it down, I mean, we're here to help people connect with God, which means as the team of worship leaders, we've got to make sure that we're developing as people as well.
Right. Yeah, we need to develop individually, and our team needs to develop. We need to help them develop.
Yep.
And the reality is, you can't take people where you haven't been. And so it's really critical that you're helping your team go to that place in their own worship, where then they can take the congregation. So again, I think Jeff just did a great job with it. And we're excited about the whole course being launched here in just a few days.
Yeah. One final thing I want to mention as well is that if you are interested in helping to improve that relationship between the lead pastor and the worship pastor. Sometimes there can be tension that arises because of the different personalities, the different ways of thinking, and Jeff kind of alluded to some of that in these two sessions that we watched here today and in the previous episode. But if that's something that might apply to you, there's a free PDF that we've put out that is all about helping the worship pastor to serve and honor the lead pastor. And so many times, there can be these moments where it's like, well, how does that relationship work? This PDF guide is designed to help you see how that relationship can work. So whether you're a lead pastor watching or listening to this, or maybe you're a worship pastor and you're watching or listening to this, either way, this is a good little guide for you to be able to just kind of get a feel for how that can work. And you can access this PDF. It's free PDF by just going to Leaders.Church/honor. Again, Leaders.Church/honor. And we'd be glad to get that in your hands. So,
Absolutely.
Dick, anything else?
No, I think, just everybody's enjoyed watching this. And if you didn't see part one, go back and watch part one, catch part two together, put them all together, and you'll understand the nitty gritty of the worship pastor's life. Thanks for hanging out with us on this podcast. We loved having you. Make it a great one today, and be blessed.
Hey, Jonathan here, real quick before you go. Everything in your ministry rises and falls on your leadership. So investing in your leadership is essential to staying healthy and growing the ministry. And that's why I want to invite you to join us inside the Leaders.Church membership. This online streaming service for pastors gives you access to more than 300 videos plus training material to level up your leadership and improve your ministry skills. If you'd like to do that, I want to invite you to go to Leaders.Church/boost. Again, that's Leaders.Church/boost. Well, thanks again for joining us on the Church Tips podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.